Now, let's welcome our next guest, Dave Stearns. David Stearns is a well-known financial advisor as well as a very, very good friend of mine from the area of Atlanta, Georgia. David, it's great to have you back on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here, Dave.
So as you know, you heard a little bit of our show earlier. We're talking about safe havens and the like. And you're in the saddle every day. You're sitting there talking to clients every day and so on and so forth. What's their general vibe today about the markets, about interest rates? What are people feeling? What are people's concerns that you're hearing grassroots, not the talking heads on TV, but grassroots?
Sure. Well, as you know, the Stearns Retirement Group, a lot of the folks that I meet with are very near retirement,
Right.
or some of them are deep in their retirement. And while they've enjoyed this great uptick of the market for a number of years, many of them don't know how to deal with a lot of the uncertainty, especially in retirement. That makes them very uncomfortable. There's a lot of interest rate uncertainty, just a lot of investor uncertainty. So the general feeling is that they're concerned and they're looking for better places for their money at this stage in retirement.
Now, Wall Street will say, hey, if you've got enough money and you retire, then you can afford to take the loss. And that's okay because you have enough assets. But when I talk to clients, I don't find that that's the whole truth. Because even if you have enough money where you can afford on paper to take a loss during retirement, the reality of it is it affects people emotionally. It detracts from their enjoyment of retirement. Have you found this to be true also?
Well, it does. I've been doing this for a long time, and I've worked with retirees that went through the drop in 2000, again the drop in 2007, and maybe they had a lot of money, but it's a whole different ball game when you're accumulating money and you lose money on the way up than when you're decumulating money, taking income, and the markets are falling. It's a different feeling altogether. Sometimes we talk about the wealth effect. They just don't feel wealthy. Yeah, they might still have $1 million, but if they lost 400,000 or 500,000, it changes their attitude on retirement completely. They won't spend money, and and it's not the way that they wanted to enjoy retirement. So that's the part I think Wall Street often misses, because Wall Street doesn't often look into the eyeballs like I do every day of investors, real people.
Yeah,
tired.
They tend to lose the human factor, and it's true. You pick the net worth. It could be 500,000, could be $1 million, whatever the net worth is. When you're passing it on the way up, you're feeling good. When you're passing it on the way down, not so good. David, stay with us. We'll be back for one more segment. And you stay with us too. We'll be back with more here on The Income Generation. I'm David Scranton. David, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
So you heard our previous guest talk a little bit about a possible pending bond bubble, right? And of course, you and I laugh at it when we hear people say that. And of course, as you know, his specialty in his firm is really commodities. And when he was talking about a bond bubble, he was listening to the stock market experts at his firm, whom, as you know, stock market experts love to talk about a bond bubble because they really want you to be in the stock market, not the bond market. But you know, David, your clients, my clients, hear the same stuff when they turn on the television, as our viewers just saw a few minutes ago. And at the end of the day, they look for safe havens, not income-generating safe havens. They look like things like gold and Bitcoin and things that they think are safe havens per se, and which could be, but don't generate income. What is it they're really looking for? Why is it you think they're focusing on those types of things?
Are you saying why are they talking about a bond bubble, or why are retirees looking for the safe havens?
Why retirees are looking for those other types of safe havens outside of the income generating world versus looking within the income generating world?
Dave, probably because our industry has done a tremendous job of shaping so many of the minds of the average investor. And so they're looking for something exciting. They're looking for something more exciting than the bond market. The bond market will probably clear a cocktail party when you think about it. But the reality is the bond market is nearly twice as big as the stock market and has provided a great deal of income and stability for generations of investors. But that's not nearly as exciting as gold and Bitcoin.
Now, how much you hear today the trade wars as being an impetus for people coming to you saying, where can I put my money that's safe?
Well, certainly, the media has done a good job of scaring people with the
Yeah,
trade wars,
sure.
and so people have that as a big concern. But Dave, I think what the president has done, in my mind, there's been a lot of method to his madness. Meaning, he started a huge bonfire that would be the U.S. economy by giving one of the best corporate tax cuts we've ever seen. In the first quarter of this year, it generated 117.4 billion dollars in corporate tax savings, and
Mhm.
those dollars have been spent. And we can see that investors have benefited through higher dividends. And so I don't. And then he's throwing cold water on a bonfire. The bonfire being the U.S. economy, the cold water being the trade wars. And so, at the end of the day, I think I'm able to help my clients realize that the trade wars, yeah, they may be uncertain and a little bit scary, but those probably isn't probably going to be what triggers
Mm.
what we're seeing right now in the stock market.
But
So those fears should be centered a little bit more around interest rate uncertainty, rising inflation, those types of things, not necessarily the trade war.
But it's interesting, even in a pretty politically conservative part of the country like the one in which you live, people still buy into all that media hype about, oh my goodness, the trade war, the trade war. So, David, I hope to have you back sometime. We have to leave it there for today. Thanks for being with us. Stay with us. We'll be right back here on The Income Generation.